Today we're continuing our series on when I'm trying to do the right thing, but I don't feel like there's any point because there's no reward. Stay tuned. Hey guys, and welcome back to God's Word Made Simple by Simple Servant Ministries. My name is Aaron Hawk, and today we are continuing our walk through the book of Proverbs, specifically chapter 3, verses 27 through 35 today, and we're talking about the rewards that come from trying to do the right thing, and most importantly, how the rewards are greater than we are expecting, but often not what or the way that we were expecting those rewards. So verse 27, and by the way, if you haven't watched the previous videos, please go back and watch them because there's a lot of things that I'm not going to explain now because I've already covered them fairly in depth in the previous videos in this series. So verse 27, do not withhold good from those to whom it is due when it is in your power to do it. So we talked about this a bit in one of the previous videos. If you have the ability to meet a need and God presents you with that need, assume that it's your job to meet that need. Right? We can't help everybody, and we are not financially able to do every single thing that comes along that is a possibility. I'm not saying that, but I am talking about sacrificial giving, and I'm saying if there's a need you're aware of and you have the ability to meet that need, you should meet that need. That's all through the Bible, and we're hearing it again right now. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due. And by the way, this goes beyond just finances, right? This is the same thing as if you have a situation where there's some politics and somebody's trying to rabble-rouse. You may have the ability to step in and do the right thing, but you're nervous. Maybe that's not your personality to step up in that. You still need to do it. Do not withhold good from those to whom it is due, when it is in your power to do it. Continuing the thought, do not say to your neighbor, go and come back, and tomorrow I will give it. See, I grew up with nothing, and I don't want to pull out the little violin and whine and complain, but there were people, even in church, that saw needs that we had, legitimate needs, and they didn't do anything, and you can kind of chalk that up to complacency and lots of other reasons, and I'm not trying to judge the people that didn't do things, don't misunderstand me. But specifically what I'm trying to lead up to is there were also circumstances where somebody would see the need in our life and promise to meet that need and then fail to do so. For example, I tried like crazy just to be able to afford a basic vehicle when I was of age to drive. And we just didn't have the money, and I worked like crazy trying to make it happen, but I couldn't afford anything decent, and this whole cycle, if you've ever had the poor vehicle syndrome, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You buy the car, and then you're trying to fix it, but there's so many repairs you can't catch up, right? So specifically, I remember one instance in particular that I thought of just now when I read this, and somebody promised me, because I was in college now at this point, and they promised me that they would purchase a van for me. And it just never happened. It just fell off the wayside. But they talked about it for weeks leading up to the date that it was supposed to happen, and then it just kind of went away. And, I typically haven't gotten too optimistic when people promise things, not in a cynical sense, but I guess it is a little bit. But I just learned that people didn't always mean what they said. But in this case, I was really let down because this was somebody that really made a big deal out of taking care of it and then didn't. So going back here, verse 28, do not say to your neighbor, go and come back, and tomorrow I will give it, when you have it with you. See, that person already had the means to meet that need several different ways. And I know this because of the relationship that I had with that person as well as the specific things that they shared. So I'm not judging this person without knowledge, and I'm not judging them at this point. I have long since forgiven them. So I'm not judging them in the active looking down on them sense. I'm simply using this as an analogy. This person had the means, had made the promise, had the thing with them to do it, and just never did. So verse 28, do not say to your neighbor, go and come back, and tomorrow I will give it, when you have it with you. So this should be the case for all of us when we see a need. See, if you have the ability to meet a need and you see that need, you should have to have a reason not to meet the need instead of looking for a reason to meet the need. See, it's backward from our human nature. If we want to know how to live in a way that pleases God, this is part of it. Okay, now again, I'm not talking about pleasing God in the salvation sense. Different video, different day. Verse 29, do not devise harm against your neighbor while he lives securely beside you. In other words, don't be a treacherous you-know-what. Live at peace, and as much as it depends on you, live at peace with all men, right? Do not devise harm against your neighbor while he lives securely beside you. Do not contend with a man without cause. Don't be a rabble-rouser, okay? Do not contend with a man without cause if he has done no harm to you, or if he has done you no harm. Now, pay attention here, because this isn't saying don't stick up for yourself, right? This isn't saying not to contend with somebody that is trying to harm you. So it's not talking about self-defense. It's not talking about not sticking up for yourself. It's saying don't be a bully, okay? Verse 31, do not envy a man of violence, and do not choose any of his ways. See, and this could be easily applied to much more than just a man of violence, but in this instance, that's the analogy that's being used, as a man of violence, especially in the time that this was written. This was written back in the days when countries went to war all the time in much more obvious ways than they do today. They're still at war all the time with each other. But this is back in the day where you would have had just masses of troops constantly going out to battle, and not just fighting, but going to conquer land and taking over that land. See, most of the time in modern days, most of the time in modern wars, it's not about conquering land as much as it is just world leaders not agreeing with each other and then war. I'm not going to get into that. That's your military and law enforcement and all that. You guys, you know where I'm going with that. I'm not derailing on that right now. Okay? Do not be envious. Do not envy a man of violence, and do not choose any of his ways. See, it seems easy to go conquer and get what you want. But that's not the right way to go about it. And as we learned in previous Proverbs, there are long-term consequences to that as well. And if you're wise, you will understand the difference between short-term gain and long-term gain, or long-term blessing. Okay? Verse 32, for the devious are an abomination to the Lord. Just in case you weren't quite sure what he was getting at. For the devious are an abomination to the Lord, but he is intimate with the upright. See, you will not be in fellowship with the Lord if you are living in that way, where you are constantly trying to get over on people. But when you walk uprightly and you are more concerned about others than yourself, then you are beginning to understand what it means to truly love God and love your neighbor. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbor as yourself. Verse 33, the curse of the Lord is on the house of the wicked, but he blesses the dwelling of the righteous. And I know it doesn't always seem like it here on this earth. Refer back to some of my other videos on the book of Proverbs in this series, because again, I don't want to rehash everything I've already taught in those videos. It doesn't always seem that God is blessing the righteous and cursing the wicked, because frankly, it seems like the wicked prosper and the righteous don't most of the time. But again, go back and watch those videos. I go much more in depth in those videos. Though he scoffs at the scoffers, yet he gives grace to the afflicted. Talking about God. He scoffs at the scoffers, yet he gives grace to the afflicted. The wise will inherit honor, but fools display dishonor. So this section is the conclusion to everything that we've been talking about, specifically in chapter 3, but also the first 3 chapters as a whole. This section is the conclusion to those verses and to those chapters. So he's painting once and for all, choose to live rightly and don't choose to go down the path of the wicked. That is essentially the point to this last section. And the very last verse, the wise will inherit honor. See, honor is something that is earned, or using the word inherit, it is something that is given for a reason, and in this case, that reason is choosing to live in light of the Lord. But fools display dishonor. See, your deeds will find you out. What is done in the darkness will be shouted on the rooftops. All right, guys, next time we will go into chapter 4 of the book of Proverbs and continue from there. So I look forward to seeing you next time. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. And if you want to support Simple Servant Ministries in particular, please feel free to do so. Go ahead and go on the website, simpleservant.org. You can find the link in the description as well. But as I have said before, since I know some of my church members are watching this, I want to be very clear, support the church first. You know, these videos are being recorded because we're anticipating not being able to meet for a little while. And the bills in the church still need to be paid regardless of whether we have service. The electric bill and so on, it may be less, but bills are still due regardless of income, as you are well aware. So I want to ask you and exhort you, you always, regardless of the circumstances, I'm talking about the virus thing right now, but always support your church first, and then out of abundance choose to do giving from there. So if you are a church member, give to the church first and give faithfully. If you want to do something beyond that, great. But for church members, remember I'm also producing these videos for people on YouTube and various other platforms that are not church members. So as long as you understand the difference, that I'm creating this video right now for both purposes and thus the statements that I just made. So bottom line, guys, thank you very much. Let me know if you have any thoughts or questions. I appreciate you, and God bless.